So, welcome back. I'm Top Music Attorney. It's pretty much a dumpster fire over at the Copyright Office. And so, the last we had reported on this, the director of the Copyright Office had been terminated. And we just go, well, was this even legal? But we go, more than that, we don't know if this was retaliatory because it seemed really odd. The Copyright Office, and specifically the Register of Copyrights, put out a report. And this is part 3 of this series on copyright and AI. Okay. And we do know that the current administration is pro tech, and this third part came out and it talked all about and did a very deep dive on whether AI companies can train on copyrighted stuff and whether it's fair use. Fair use is a defense to copyright infringement. And this matters because these companies are getting sued all over the place right now for copyright infringement. So, the Copyright Office being very persuasive, right? This is the, chief legal and policy advisor to Congress, to federal agencies, and whatever the Copyright Office says is very persuasive to courts as well. So we go, if I'm one of the attorneys representing, let's say, a major record label suing one of these AI companies like Suno, like Udio, I'm just loving this report because essentially it came out and it was like, you know what? We don't see that there's going to be transformation. We don't see fair use. And it's really hard to justify when an AI company takes, for example, songs, trains its tech, develops its text, and then creates, competing product, meaning other songs. So here we are today, and now there's been a lawsuit filed by the ex-director Shira Perlmutter against Trump. This is Music Business Worldwide. The outset head of the U.S. Copyright Office has filed a lawsuit against President Donald Trump after having been fired by the White House a day after releasing the report on AI and copyright that largely sided with rights holders and against AI developers. Shira Perlmutter, who held the position of Register of Copyrights until May 10th, and contends in her lawsuit that she still holds the position. Now, we're going to take a peek at this lawsuit, okay? But she contends in the lawsuit, she goes, I'm still the boss. And I think she has something like 400 employees under her, okay, that work over at the Copyright Office. But essentially, there's the Librarian of Congress, okay? So there's the Library of Congress. I looked up pictures. I'm like, let's go on a little tour right now. So let me show you what I found. Okay, so this is from a website, Why Travel, and here's the front of the Library of Congress, right? This really amazing building. Here's another picture. It says the Library of Congress is the largest library in the world with a collection of around 173 million items. It's also said to grow by 2 million items per year. And then I thought, well, besides the very naked men, there's that. Some kind of, what is this, an eel, snake kind of thing. All right, there's that. But also the main reading room. This is just so amazing. Can you imagine? So anyway, that's what it looks like. But why did this matter? So there's the Library of Congress. There's the librarian, right? So boss in charge of the Library of Congress. And then within that is the Copyright Office. Okay. So the Register of Copyrights is Shira. And that's what we're talking about here. So going back to the article. So the administration, the attempt to remove Miss Perlmutter as the Register of Copyrights, it's blatantly unlawful. Congress vested the Librarian of Congress, right, to the Librarian of Congress, not the president, with the power to appoint and therefore to remove the Register of Copyrights. Perlmutter's lawyers stated in the complaint earlier this month, Trump had also fired Carla Hayden, who was the Librarian of Congress, and then replaced Hayden with Todd Blanche, a deputy attorney general with the Department of Justice. So here's the tea. I guess what happened is that, when this big firing happened, the replacement goes on over and they're handing out this letter. And the staff's freaking out. They ended up calling the police. Okay, we're going to talk about and show you, what they say in the complaint. But, essentially in this letter, they go, pursuant to the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, This is the basis that the president has to fire the register of copyrights and what well actually let me just have her say it in her complaint. Let me go over to this right now. All right, factual allegations. President Trump fired the Librarian of Congress, okay, so Carla Hayden via email. This was on May 8th. Dr. Hayden, who was appointed in 2016, became the 14th Librarian of Congress and was the first African American, the first woman to serve in the role. White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt explained that Dr. Hayden's firing was due to, quote, quite concerning things that Dr. Hayden had done at the Library of Congress in pursuit of DEI and putting inappropriate books in the library. Neither Ms. Levitt or any other administration official provided any details or support for the claims, which are at odds with the library's status as a non-lending research library accessible only by those 16 and older. Under the regulations promulgated pursuant to 2 U.S.C. Section 136 and long-standing practice, interim principal deputy Librarian Robert Newland replaced Dr. Hayden as acting Librarian of Congress. Okay, so then, next day, May 9th, the U.S. Copyright Office issued a long-awaited report in pre-publication format. So this was part 3, okay, on copyright and artificial intelligence, issued pursuant to the Register of Copyright's statutory responsibility to, quote, conduct studies and advise Congress on national and international issues related to copyrights. All right. So then what happened? The following day, on May 10th, Trent Morse, who's a deputy assistant to the president and deputy director of the White House presidential personnel, sent an email to Miss Pearl Mutter, which stated that on behalf of the president, her position as the Registrar of Copyrights and director at the U.S. Copyright Office is terminated effective immediately. President Trump later reposted on social media, Truth Social, the following post announcing he had fired Miss Pearl Mutter. Let me go close for this so you guys can see. Okay, so it's an article from CBS News. Trump fires the copyright director. On May 12th, 2 Justice Department officials arrived at the Library of Congress and requested access to the U.S. Copyright Office. The Justice Department officials, Brian Neves, who serves as Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's Chief of Staff and Senior Policy Counsel, and Paul Perkins, Mr. Blanche's Associate Deputy Attorney General, showed library staff a letter from the White House that purported to appoint Mr. Blanche to serve as the acting Librarian of Congress. The letter referenced the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, there it is, as the source of the president's authority to name Mr. Blanche to the post of acting Librarian of Congress. The Justice Department officials also showed library staff an email from Mr. Blanche that stated that he had selected them to serve in their senior roles with the Library of Congress. Mr. Neves as the acting Deputy Librarian of Congress and Mr. Perkins to replace Miss Perlmutter as the acting Register of Copyrights and the Director of the U.S. Copyright Office, which serves as Mr. Blanche's ratification, right? So the approval of the president's decision to remove Miss Perlmutter from her position. So guess what the Library of Congress staff did? They called the police and the federal law enforcement agency charged with protecting the United States Congress, which has jurisdiction within the Library of Congress's building and grounds. I mean, it was going down this day. Subsequently, Mr. Neves, Mr. Perkins left the Library of Congress voluntarily. A Justice Department spokesperson later represented to news outlets that President Trump had appointed Mr. Blanche as the acting Librarian of Congress. The Justice Department spokesperson also represented that Mr. Blanche has appointed Mr. Neves and Mr. Perkins to their respective positions in the library. So, as of right now, right, Shira is saying, I haven't been fired. I haven't been removed. You are unable to do this, especially based on if you're going to say the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, it's allowed, but the language is to the president can temporarily fill vacant high-level positions with an executive agency. So she goes, "You're jumping, we're supposed to have a separation of powers and all that good stuff. And this act that you're referencing does not apply here. You're not filling, well, yeah, I guess you're kind of filling a vacancy now, right? But you're certainly not filling, it's not an executive agency, one. But number two, you created this void." So look at the complaint here on who specifically she is suing. All right, so the plaintiff, so the person suing, Shira Perlmutter, and she is suing. We, of course, see President Donald Trump here at the bottom, but she is suing Todd Blanche in his capacity as the person claiming to be acting librarian of Congress, Paul Perkins in his capacity as the person claiming to be the register of copyrights. And then, of course, goes on. So there are others who were from the personnel office. We have Sergio, we have Trent, and of course, executive office of the president. Okay, so drop a comment down below as far as number one, the legality of this. We questioned this right away. We go, oh boy, not sure this could happen. But number two, it did seem retaliatory, but more so it's just, to the extent that the timing of this report comes out specifically that is kind of anti-tech, right? So this doesn't jive so well with the current administration. And then she receives this email. She is removed from her position, allegedly. And so we just go, not sure what's going to happen from here, because especially with this report, this was a pre-publication report, meaning it is a almost final draft. And in fact, I did a full deep dive. I'm going to be releasing that on this channel. So make sure you subscribe right now so you don't miss that. And I go through the whole thing. What did she say that allegedly got her terminated? So in this complaint, she is asking, let's go back to it. She's filed this in federal court, so it's the District of Columbia, and she's asking the court for declaratory relief and injunctive relief, right? So essentially a temporary restraining order. So saying, Your Honor, and I think part of the question is going to be, well, who's the judge that's going to be assigned to this case? There's that. But essentially asking, Your Honor, we need to have you declare I'm still the boss. I still have this position, okay? And that also that you need to prevent these other people, Blanche, Perkins, right, from interfering, from stepping into these roles and otherwise making decisions, running, my department. So that's essentially what this is. And this is a huge deal because, again, we go back to, before we even saw that this lawsuit had been filed, it kind of seemed like there was a real dumpster fire of a situation happening at the Copyright Office, besides a real concern for creatives. And what this report initially, meant when we read through and we go, this is amazing because this is a piece, a significant piece of protection potentially for creatives, right? So as we have these lawsuits and we go, this isn't the end of the story. Major record labels coming and suing Suno and Udio and Anthropic over copyright infringement. And our question here, and the journey that we're on as a community, as a music business community here on Top Music Attorney is, well, what are we going to do for independent artists? What are we going to do for everyone else who is not represented in these current lawsuits? And then to have this report come down from the Copyright Office that is going to be very persuasive to judges who are now going to turn to the Copyright Office and say, well, what do you say when it comes to fair use? And is it okay for AI companies to do what they have been doing and that they have admitted to? They have admitted that they have gone and scrubbed and likely accessed tens of millions of songs, your songs. And so as we see this kind of unraveling right now through, these different lawsuits, we were very interested. And now we're even more interested because we had this report that came out that was very pro-creator. And then this is what happened. Be sure to subscribe. We'll keep you posted.